In this exciting tutorial, we will delve deep into the realm of photo manipulation. Throughout this full tutorial, I will guide you step by step, revealing the secrets of creating captivating compositions. From masking and blending images together, to color correcting the elements, color grading them, painting light and shadow, putting the final effects, the atmosphere effects, and enhancing everything in the final touches. Whether you are a beginner eager to learn the basics or an experienced artist looking to refine your techniques, you will master all the tools and techniques that will take your photo manipulation to the next level. So without any further ado, let's dig into business. Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Nour and this is Nour Art Channel. Okay, so let's not waste any time because I guess this tutorial will be long. So let's go to Photoshop and let's start by the references I gathered to create this visual. Okay, so my main plan here was to create something that tells a story, and it is something related to crime or a war or something, and I just wanted to design a visual in these low light situations. So for example here, if you zoom in, all this area doesn't have this high brightness. And if you are into photo manipulation, you will know that this is one of the hardest things to create, the low light situations. Okay, so this was another reference and this was another one. So let's go to Photoshop and let's just start into the visual. Okay, so I will start by creating a new file and I will make it full HD size, 1920 by 1080p, maintaining the color depth into 16. This will give me flexibility in coloring, and then press create. And then I will just expand the canvas to 4K, press Alt Control I, and then change this into 4K. This will give me flexibility in zooming in and zooming out. You can find all the images that I'm using in the link in the description so that you can follow along with me. I always start with a sky. This will put the initial mood of the visual, of course. And for this, I chose the dramatic cloudy sky. Let's make it bigger. One problem with this image is that this area of the cloud is kinda simple, or it doesn't have a lot of details. That's why I got this image of clouds also, and I put it right here, and then blended it. Press OK, and let's create a mask. With soft rounded brush, I will just mask it like this. Okay, that's how I created like depth into the clouds. Very good. Let's select both layers and create a group, pressing Ctrl G, and let's name this sky. Okay, I will start element by element, which means I will correct each element I put until I get the final visual. So let's start by putting the first color grading that we want in this visual. For this, I decided to create some cyanish, bluish, bright color into the sky. So let's go, I always go to color balance, and you can use selective color, you can use curves, whatever the way, and then pressing Alt and pressing between the two layers. And let's create a clipping mask. Let's put some cyans, some greens, and some blues. And let's go to the shadows, doing the same thing until you get the result that you wanted. Let's go to the highlights, the same thing. Now let's bring the second layer of the sky. But firstly, obviously, these clouds are very dark. So let's match the brightness of these two clouds and then correct the colors. So let's start by creating a curves adjustment layer, and then let's make it brighter like this. Don't forget to clip it to the layer, and maybe we can open up the shadows a little bit like this. Then let's go to adjustments and creating color balance, create a clipping mask, and let's adjust the colors to match the other sky or clouds. Okay, so let's add some cyans, maybe some greens and some blues. Let's go to highlights and do the same thing. Very, very nice. So here is before correcting the lightness and after, and before correcting the color and after. Very nice. Now let's go to the main element. So this scene will be something like post-apocalyptic scene in which everything is damaged and crashed. So let's start by this image. Let's put it right here and let's put it above everything. Make it bigger. And I will start by selecting this sky. So let's go to select and sky. This will make AI select the sky for us. And then let's press Alt and press into the mask to select only the buildings, not the sky. Very nice. And for this, I will take this image as the main image of the ground. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Like so. Very, very nice. And maybe we will have to remove some parts of this image. So let's mask this building. We will not need it. And this one as well. Very, very nice. Now I think we need to expand this building. So how can we do this? Is simply by selecting the image like this and then duplicating it by pressing Ctrl J. So I have created like another duplicate from it, and then let's just make it stretch it like this, pressing Ctrl T, and just stretch it like this. Very simple, and it will not be like very noticeable, okay, because we will only need this part. So let's mask it, create a mask, and pressing Ctrl I to invert the mask, and using the brush I will just paint over this area. Very, very subtle and nice. Okay, very nice. Now let's correct the lightness and the color of this image. And the main thing I want you to think about in this part specifically is the further you go in distance, the less contrasty the elements should. And this is due to the atmospheric hazing effect. So let's firstly put these two layers into a group and let's name it main ground. And let's start by putting these two layers into a smart object because we want to put some effects on them, both of them. So let's go to adjustments and let's start by creating curves adjustment layer, creating clipping mask, and let's start to darken the image like this. And open the shadows a little bit. Now let's go to adjustments and let's go to color balance to correct the colors. And let's add a bunch of cyans, some greens, and some blues. The same thing we did before into the sky, and it is the same thing we will do for the whole design. So go to highlights and add some other touches. Okay, that's very nice. Now let's add the atmosphere effect in front of this areas, the far elements. So how can we do this? Is simply by creating another curves adjustment layer and then open up the shadows like this and maybe make it a little bit more or darker. And then let's create a clipping mask and let's change the blending mode into luminosity. This will make the curves layer only affect the lightness of the image. And then let's create, press Ctrl I to invert this mask. And then using the soft rounded brush, I can fade these far elements like this. Okay, so I'm basically putting like atmosphere effect or hazing fog effect. Very, very nice. We can create also a new curves adjustment layer, increasing the contrast like this, and then changing the blending mode into luminosity as well, and press Ctrl I to invert this mask, and we can paint over the closer areas. This will emphasize the effect that there are some elements are far away and others are close. Very nice. Let's do the same thing into the sky because we want these parts of the sky to be darker a little bit. So let's create a curves adjustment layer, make it darker, changing its blending mode into luminosity, pressing Ctrl I to invert the mask, and then let's paint over these close areas. And using another curves layer, we can make it brighter and change the blending mode into luminosity. Press Ctrl I to invert the mask, and let's paint over this area to make it bright. Quick pause. If you're interested in creating amazing visuals like this step by step, I have good news for you, because my premium course, The Ultimate Guide to Photo Manipulation, is now released, and you can find it in the link in the description. In this course, I have explained all these projects in details. We have explained everything from putting images together, correcting lightness values, correcting saturation, correcting colors, and we have talked about how to paint light and shadow, how to put atmosphere effect, and adding the last final grading and color effects. You will find also all the images used, the PSD files, and the brushes used. So what are you waiting for? If you want to take your photo manipulation skills to the next level, you can join my course. The link is in the description, and let's get back to the video. Okay, let's go to the next element, which will be this building. So let's bring the object selection tool, and firstly I will get this image of this building by selecting it simply like this, using the quick selection or the object selection tool, and then I will simply press Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and let's take it to our project, put it right here. Let's convert it into a smart object, and let's put it behind the main ground image. Let's make it small, something like this. I'm putting several layers of buildings. This will make depth into the visual. Okay, now let's put it into a group, and let's name it Tower Right. Very nice. And let's correct everything. So this should be something very far away in distance, and it shouldn't be that clear. So let's start by reducing its contrast by creating curves adjustment layer, and let's make it dark like this. And at the same time, let's open up the shadows, and we will get into the lightness again later, but let's go to adjustments now to enhance or to correct the colors, and then get back to the lightness, because I want to judge it into a better way. So let's add some colors. So go to shadows, add some cyans, greens, and blues. And let's see, of course, we need to make it brighter, and at the same time, less contrasty, something like this. Very nice. And then let's correct the colors again. And a very good trick I always do to blend these kind of images into the atmospheric effects. I use a solid color adjustment layer and create a clipping mask, and let's choose some color from the background. So let's say a cyanish color like this, and press OK. And then I can go and blend this color into the shadows. So I'll double click into the layer and remove the color from the highlights like this. And by pressing the split Alt, I will split the cursors like this. And let's blend it somehow like this. Very, very nice. Then press OK. Let's see. We can decrease the opacity. And one final thing, we can create a new layer, and using the soft rounded brush, I will pick some bright color from the background, not so much, something like this, and then creating a clipping mask, and let's just paint some hazing effect like this. And one final thing is I create a new layer, and let's choose some fog brush, and let's pick some colors from here, and let's blend it like this. So I'm now trying to blend the clouds into the building itself. Something like this. Very nice, but the building itself is very bright, so let's make it darker. Let's make this opacity lower. So something like this, and let's decrease the opacity of this one as well. And it will finally work. After some tweaks, it will finally work. The reason why it's taking that all that time is that the image itself was super sharp and clear, and we want it to look like it's faded. That's why it's not that easy, but it's okay, we can do it. Very nice. Now let's bring another copy of this tower. So I will simply press Alt and duplicate this tower, and maybe I will change its orientation because I don't want it to look like it's complete duplicate from the right one. So something maybe like this, and then press Enter. Very nice. Maybe we can make it closer by increasing the contrast a little bit like this and decreasing the opacity of this layer. And maybe we can move this cloud layer to the top. Something like this. Very nice and easy. So let's go to the next element, which will be our focal point, which will be this house. Let's open it into a new project. We will simply select this house by the object selection tool. So I will just select it like this, and then let's create a mask, and using the brush we can refine this selection and just paint over this part because we will need it into our visual. Very nice. Now let's right click, convert it into a smart object, and let's bring it into our main project. Put it right here. Let's put it into a group and let's name it main building. Let's put it behind the main ground part. I'll put it right here, and let's make it small. I guess I need to make it change its orientation to make it like taller or something like this. I think this is better. Very nice. Press Enter and let's put it right here. I just want to mention a rule of composition which is called the rule of third. It's basically to divide your visual into 3 sections horizontally and vertically. And you can put your main focal points into these 4 points, which can make your composition and message better. You know, if you put your main focal points or main elements into these points, this will deliver the message in a better way. So that's why I put this main building here. Another thing I want to do before blending the colors is I want to change this black part into something that has texture. So let's press double click into the smart object to open the image itself, and then I want to fill this black area with some texture. So I'll just take this door, I will select it and put it into this black spot. Control C, Control V, and then let's just put it right here. That's it. So let's press Control S. This will save it and it will look like this. Very, very nice. Now let's care about blending this main focal point. Firstly, I will just erase some parts from the main ground. From here, I will just mask some parts. So let's mask this area. Now let's enhance or match the colors. Firstly, I will start by decreasing this very yellowish color by creating a hue saturation adjustment layer, create a clipping mask, and let's just reduce the colors like this. The next element will be creating curves to match the brightness, so I will darken it, create a clipping mask, and then darken it and open up the shadows, because this should be somehow hazy. This will give us the illusion that this element is a little bit far away in distance. And next, let's go to adjustment, color balance, and do the same color correction thing. So try to match it with the background. Very nice. Now let's bring some foreground elements. And as I'm always saying, if you want to create depth into your photo manipulations, you need to create some elements that are closer to the camera, the foreground elements, the midground elements, and the background elements. This will create some depth into your visuals and composites. So for the foreground elements, I will bring this image of the car. Let's make it bigger, something like this, and let's just put it into a separate group. And I want to select this part. I will do this simply by the object selection tool. So let's just select it like this, and then let's create a mask, and let's put this car into the foreground somewhere right here. Make it bigger like this. It's gonna be dark, so let's put it right here, and let's erase these parts or fade it away using maybe the soft rounded brush or any textured brush. Let's just go to the soft rounded brush, and I will just fade it away like this. Maybe we can decrease the flow, and let's fade it like this. Very soft and gentle. Now let's enhance and match its color and saturation and all the other stuff. So let's start by adjustment, creating curves, and let's make it dark like this. And maybe open up the shadows. And let's create adjustment, color balance layer, and let's add some cyans, greens, and blues. Do the same thing into the shadows. Some bunch of cyans and maybe some blues. Let's see. Yeah, it needs a lot of toggling in color. Okay, maybe the blues are very high, so let's decrease it. And let's go to the highlights, increase the cyans and blues, and maybe some greens. No, I think we can fix this using a solid color. So let's create a solid color, and let's create a clipping mask, and let's pick some dark cyanish color from the background or any element, and then press OK. And let's just blend using blend F. I will just put this color into the shadows. So I will reduce it or remove it from the highlights like this. And then press Alt to split the cursor, and maybe you can make it like this. Press OK, and let's see. It's not bad. Can decrease the opacity. Very nice. Now let's paint some hazing or atmosphere light effect into this car. So I will create a new layer, an empty one. And using the soft rounded brush and picking any color from the sky, I will just paint. Let's create a clipping mask. I will just paint over these areas. Let's change the blending mode into screen, and maybe with low flow of the brush, we can simply paint over here. Very soft lights. And then we can go to double click into the layer and remove this effect from the shadows. Press Alt to split the cursor and remove it like this. And press OK. And let's see before and after. Very nice, very nice. Now let's bring another element for the foreground, which will be this fence. So let's put it right here. Let's press Ctrl T, flip horizontal, and let's make it very huge. Press enter, and then let's just select it using maybe quick selection tool. Very nice. Now let's create a mask, and let's put it right here. Very nice. Now let's correct these colors, and I guess guys you understand the main idea. It's basically the same thing. Curves to adjust the lightness, and then let's go to color balance, create a clipping mask, and then add the color that we want in the midtones, and the same thing into the highlights and the shadows. Very nice. We can also bring this layer, solid color layer we used here, we can put it into this layer as well to give it the color that we want. So, okay, it's basically giving the shadows specific color. Okay, so as you can see here, before and after, before and after. This is the effect, and we can always go and reduce the opacity. Very nice. Now let's bring the main focal point, which is this man, and I'll just simply select it using select object. Let's see. And for this, we can use any four or grass brush using the arrow keys, and let's just paint over the edges. We couldn't be very detailed or very accurate in this tutorial because I don't want this tutorial to be like 5 or 4 hours long, but we are doing our best to give you the most value of the video. Now selecting the two layers, I'll right click, convert it into a smart object, and let's put it into our main image. Press Ctrl T, flip it horizontally because we want it to be we want the man to look like he is going into the direction of the house. And let's put him right here. Now next, let's enhance or match their color. And I guess we can quickly make it, or I will speed up this process because, you know, it's the same process. So I will just make it quickly. Very nice, the man is now matched. So let's start by creating a shadow for this man. I will start creating a new layer and clip it to the man, and let's use the soft rounded brush to make this area a little bit dark. So I will choose some maybe cyanish dark color, something like this, maybe more greenish. Very nice. Now let's decrease the opacity. And let's select this man, pressing click and pressing into the layer, and then create a new layer. And in this layer, I will just press Alt backspace to fill it with the color of the shadow, and then press Ctrl D to deselect it, Ctrl T to change its shape. So right click, flip it vertically, and let's put it right here, and pressing Ctrl to change its shape and orientation to match the direction of the main source of light, which will be this sky. So let's just make it like this. Very nice, and then press OK. And of course, in this type of atmosphere, the shadows should not be that sharp. So let's go to Filter and Blur, Gallery, and let's use maybe Field Blur. I use Field Blur to control the sharpness of the shadow. So let's put one point here, another one here without increasing the blur, and let's put another one here with a very blurred something like this. Maybe we can put another one right here. Very nice. And press OK. Let's see. It's not bad. Maybe we can decrease the opacity. And this is called the ambient shadow. And then we can create the contact shadow, which is resulting from the contact of these two surfaces, the leg of the man and the ground. So I will do this. Let's just put this shadow behind the man, and let's create a new layer. And using the soft rounded brush, I will just change its shape to make it like this, smaller. And let's paint into the small areas that is the contact areas. Let's decrease the flow and just paint over here, here, and here. The areas that has contact between two elements. Very nice. Let's see before, after. You can make the opacity lower. Very nice. Next, we can paint the ambient light coming from the sky into the man. So I will do this this time using solid color layer. And I will choose some bright desaturated cyanish color like this. Change its blending mode into screen and create a clipping mask. Double click and let's remove the color from the shadow parts. Split the cursor, something like this maybe. Press OK and let's shift to the graphic tablet mode and then press Ctrl I to invert the mask. And here I will use a texture brush, which is called oil pastel brush, this one, because it gives me some texture in painting the highlights. So maybe I can speed up the process of painting the highlights. It's time consuming, but if you want to know how to paint lights or highlights precisely, I have a full video explaining this. You will find it into the link in the description. And of course, I talked about this part a lot into my premium course. You will find the link into the description as well. So let's paint over his ears. Thing like this. Maybe we can decrease the flow more. And that's very nice. Let's see. Here's before and here is after. Before and after. So for now, everything I guess is blended, but we need a spice. We need another color into the visual. It's just a very monotony, cyanish color. There's no a lot of interest. So what is the complementary color of the cyan? Orange. As you know, the orange is the opposite of the cyan. And when you add contrast or complementary colors into the same visual, it's just create color, dynamic color, contrast, and it's just good to your eye. So let's start by putting some orangey color. For this, I will pick this image of the car explosion. And let's just select it using the quick selection. Quickly, like this. Very nice. Now let's create a mask. And then let's go to select and mask to remove these black parts using the refine edge tool. So I will just refine these edges. Paint over here. I only want the orange color, so let's paint over these dark areas. Very nice, and then press OK. And let's bring this image into our main project, and we can put it behind this car. So let's put it behind this car and behind the tree layer. Let's make it smaller, something like this. Very small. It's just some explosion coming from the right. Bring the fog brush or any clouds brush, we can erase or refine the edges painting with this clouds brush. Now I think this is very saturated, so let's just correct its colors using color balance, adding some cyans and some blues and some greens, bunch of cyans. The same thing to the shadows, to the smoke. Very nice. That's better. Maybe we can go to the highlights, add some cyans as well, and some blues, which will decrease its saturation. So let's see before, after, it's now blended in a better way. And another thing I want to add here is if the visual is now looking unbalanced because the right part has a lot of orange, the left part doesn't have any orange. So we can add mysteriousness and at the same time add balance to the visual by lightening this area. So I will do this by simply going to the main building part. Let's create a solid color adjustment layer. Let's make it some orange color and let's change the blending mode into maybe linear dodge. Create a clipping mask and press Ctrl I to invert the mask. Now I can select the area using a polygonal lasso tool, maybe something like this. So this should be like the main part that the light is coming from, and then we can cast this light into different elements. So let's firstly fill this area with this color, and maybe we can feather it a little bit because it's very sharp. Let's feather it, and let's decrease the fill, maybe something like this. And we can maybe paint with a very low flow brush just to give it some color dynamics. Something like this. Create a new layer, clip it, and we can pick a brighter color and paint over the top parts. I want it to have some color dynamics, you know, and change its blending mode to screen maybe. Yeah, maybe we can decrease its opacity. Okay, let's see. Now it's way better, you know, it is now balanced. Of course, we have a lot of work painting lights and casting. These are two sources of light, two additional sources of light that we want to paint the casted light over every element we can into the visual. So let's start by the easy parts. I would just bring maybe some texture brush. I like this one. And let's just paint with a new solid color. Let's create a solid color. Press OK. Change its blending option to screen. And then press Ctrl I to invert the mask. And let's cast light into some elements. So let's start by this part. Should have some lights reflected on it, these surfaces. Start with the obvious ones, okay? And it shouldn't be like super hyper realistic lights, you know? It's just you need to paint some lights to sell the idea. That's it. Okay? So in any edge, something like this, maybe here as well, and maybe in this area. And the further you go in distance from the source of light, the lower intensity the lights should be. Okay, so let's paint over here, some lights over there. Very cool. Maybe we can erase some parts from here. And this process takes some time. It's time consuming process, but believe me guys, it's enjoyable. You will enjoy painting lights because it's like icing on the cake, you know? It's giving the visual, the final look that you like. Everything from matching the color, matching the lightness, and all this stuff doesn't give you this satisfaction that you find in painting color, you know? So let's bring some maybe fog brush to paint some hazing effect like this. Very subtle. Very nice. Maybe we can increase the size and give it some final hazing effect like this. Let's see. That's very nice. Now we can paint or cast the lights that is coming out of this fire. So let's go to the fire. Let's name it fire group. And let's firstly create a solid color to create like a glow effect coming out of this fire. So I will press Ctrl I and using maybe the soft rounded brush, bring it and let's paint some glow effect. Reduce the flow of the brush. Let's just paint some glow effect like this. Maybe this color is very saturated. Let's increase the saturation, and using the fog brush we can just paint over these areas because it's a hazy atmosphere, so the particles of the dust in the air should reflect any light, including the light that is coming out of this fire. So let's try to paint some lights casting over this mess of metals. And this will be like very hard to follow every tiny element. But let's just try to find some elements and paint some light over it. And this will finally sell the idea. We don't want to paint light in every tiny detail. So let's just pick this texture brush, like the oil pastel brush I always use. Yeah, this one, and let's decrease the flow and we can paint some lights like this. Some parts, erase them to give it some metal reflections. Maybe you can zoom out and see we are in the right direction. Maybe I will speed up the process of this and then get back to you. That is very nice. Now I guess we need some final atmospheric effects into this part and we are good to go. So I will do this by, or maybe we can bring a fog overlay. So let's bring this fog overlays. Let's put them here, and let's bring this fog overlay, put it right here. Press Ctrl T and let's make it very big, like this. And press Ctrl U and let's give it a color. Let's decrease its brightness and saturation as well. Now let's see, put it here and let's mask and fade the edges. Something like this. Very nice. Before and here is after. We can now separate this man using atmosphere effects behind him or in front of him. So let's create a new layer and using any fog brush, I'm just trying to paint with maybe this color some atmosphere effect here to separate him from the other elements, something like this, and then we can mask it or decrease the opacity like this, like it. Very nice. One final thing I'd love to add is to add some water effect. I'll do this by creating a new layer, pressing Alt Ctrl Shift E to bring everything into the canvas into one layer. Press Ctrl T, right click, flip vertical, press OK, and then let's go to Filter, Blur, and Motion Blur. This will create this water reflection effect, and then press Ctrl T, let's squeeze it, press Shift to squeeze it like this, and maybe we can distort it. Right click, press Distort, and pressing Alt and Shift we can distort it, thing like this. Very nice. And then press OK, and then let's create a mask. Press Ctrl I to invert the mask, and using a texture brush, any texture brush. I'm using this oil pastel brush, this one. I can paint with, let's change its shape to be like this, and let's paint some water bubbles here and there. Let's just increase it. But you need to choose which parts you want to be reflected at first. So for example, here I want these bright sky spots, and here as well, but I don't like this area, so maybe we can paint over here, and let's just erase or mask these parts. And finally, we can create a new layer, press Alt Ctrl Shift E to put everything into a new layer, convert it into a smart object, and let's go to Filters, Camera Raw Filter to enhance the image and to give it the final tone and the final color. So let's start with the exposure. Let's decrease the exposure a little bit and maybe increase the contrast. Let's go to highlights, maybe increase them, open up the shadows a little bit, and maybe what about the whites? Open up the whites, and the blacks, open them as well. Decrease the texture, and maybe increase clarity, dehazing, yeah. And let's go to vibrance. Maybe we can increase vibrance or decrease it. Increase it touch, and let's maybe add some magenta, shift the colors, and some yellows, I guess, to give it more realistic one. Let's see. Okay, let's go to maybe detail, add some sharpening, and effects to add some green effect, zoom out. What else? Maybe let's go to the basics and open up the shadows because they are very dark.
Yeah, let's see before and after. That's better. What else? You can tweak it as you wish. I guess for now this is good. Press OK. And the final thing I would like to do is to create a glow effect. I'll do this by selecting the highlights. So let's go to highlights and let's increase the fuzziness and increase the range. You just want the absolute highlights. Then press OK. And then press Ctrl J to only duplicate the highlights, change its blending mode into screen, and maybe we can convert it into a smart object. And let's go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur to blur it, to give it this glow effect. So I'm basically selecting the highlights and then changing its blending mode into screen, and then Gaussian blur it to create a glow effect. See before and after. Very nice. Yeah, here is the final result. Here is before and here is after. Okay guys, if you stayed to this minute, I guess I should encourage you because you have done a great job. This was a full tutorial. I guess it exceeded 1 hour, I think. So great job, congratulations. You have a great desire to learn. And the next step I want you to do is to take this tutorial that you have learned and try to make something unique with your own images. Maybe you can use the same techniques, but with different images. This will give you different results, okay? Whenever you're trying to follow a tutorial, try to do it with your own images. This will make you a better artist, of course. And as mentioned, if you want to take your photo manipulation skills to the next level, my ultimate course to photo manipulation is now available. You will find it in the link in the description. And tell me in the comments, what do you think about these full-length tutorials? Is it good? Is it bad? How can we enhance it? And yeah, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and see you in next tutorials. Peace.